Hey folks, Nathan here, continuing our look at the Tiny Epic games. But before we get into Tiny Epic Defenders, sometime in the near future when I have the time to record that massive amount of information, we actually have a couple of videos here where we're going to take a look at the first items that we're going to be taking a look at from the Tiny Epic licensed boxes. These are from eRaptor/Poland Games. They originally funded on Kickstarter and that have been available in subsequent Kickstarters and their pledge managers and should be available soon for individual purchase, if not yet, through the eRaptor website. But basically what these are exactly what it sounds like. They are Tiny Epic Games storage boxes. They are made of wood. They come in multiple panels of wood with instructions on how to put them together. They are assembled without using any glue at all. And then they have these nice printed acrylic covers for them. And all of the components have artwork on them. They are printed artwork. But these are meant to be replacements for the original boxes that allow you to not only be able to store all the components in a single box, or in the case of the three original games that have two separate big boxes for their games, in two boxes in this case, which doesn't really change much in that equation, but also allows you to have some organization on the inside for all of the components to make them easy to just take out and play, and fits sleeved cards. So kind of a cool little thing if you're wanting to bling out your Tiny Epic stuff. There are 16 of these that exist thus far, and one more is on the way. The 16 include 2 for Tiny Epic Kingdoms, because there is 1 for the base game and then 1 for the expansion. Same with Galaxies and Defenders, so that's 6. Then we have Dungeons, Vikings, Pirates, Crimes, and Tactics, all of which had some type of expansion but in a smaller box. In those cases, they're all combined into a single box. And then we have the 5 that are just the individual games that never had a separate expansion. Mechs, Zombies, Quest, Western, and Dinosaurs. The one that is coming that I mentioned is for Tiny Epic Cthulhu, but not only has that game not been released yet, the Kickstarter for the various games boxes, including Tiny Epic Cthulhu, is going to start fulfilling soon, actually shortly after this one finishes fulfilling, but Tiny Epic Cthulhu is kind of pushed back, as are any of the other ones for games that haven't actually been released yet, so they can't get final component designs done yet. So, suffice to say, we'll be looking at a lot of these as we go along, and here we're going to be taking a look at Tiny Epic Kingdoms, because we have looked at all the game stuff in previous videos, and we will also in our next video be taking a look at the storage box for Tiny Epic Dungeons, because we've already looked at Tiny Epic Dungeons in detail in both prototype and finished form. So let's dive into these for Tiny Epic Kingdoms. So we start with our base game box here. We have artwork on one side. They all have art that is horizontal, but with no logos or anything. On the right-hand side, you have the back with art as well. And then the left-hand side is designed for storage, so these can face outward. You can actually fit 2 of these side by side and make a stack of them on a Kallax shelf. So you have Tiny Epic Kingdoms there. The bottoms do not have anything. They're just black. The opposite side of all of the wooden pieces is just black. And then we have our cover art with Sir Gamelin there, and the logo. And the way that this works is these are basically snapped on here, these acrylic pieces. You have sort of a lip on any of the 4 sides, and there are little, unless it's clear here, little indentations, little clip type things on each of these spots here that it snaps into. I would note, by the way, if you do buy these, the back sides have a plastic film over them that you will need to peel off. The front does not. The back side does. The front, be careful of any chipping paint, because anything that's chipped could continue chipping. I put, in cases where I ran into that, not including these, I put a little small dot of Scotch tape over those spots just to keep them from peeling anymore, and it was fine. But there's your cover. Inside, we of course have our rule book, and then a separator here. Some of them have these, some of them do not. Again, all just black on the opposite side. And you'll notice much better organization on the inside than a regular box. So all of these are parts that can come out. So here, with artwork printed, I'm not going to show you the art of every single one of these. That would just take way too long. But suffice to say, this piece holds our active player token, includes our war dice, and then includes our exploration tokens. Then each individual player of the 5 has one of these trays, and they are color-coded to the side, which is kind of cool. And this is where you're going to put your meeples, your resource trackers, your shield token, your tower token, your research token, all that kind of stuff, so that any one player can just grab this and have all the components they need for themselves. And of course, if you're not playing with the full 5 players, you can just leave the other one sitting here in the box. So the other one, you got kind of the black scheme here, white, orange, and purple. Then you have this large tray for the bigger cards. Notice here, plenty of extra space. That is for sleeved cards. I'll show you that when we look at the Dungeons one, because that's the only one that I have sleeved right now. Again, art on the inside. Again, it's always just black on one side, art on the other side for every single component for building it. And then you'll see some type of background to go with your empty box. Here I just have the little punch-out thing, but then all of your large cards, you know, for your territories and for your factions and all that kind of stuff, that is all in there. And then it's literally just as easy as just picking everything up in its little parts, sticking it back in here, covering it, grabbing your manual, which is kind of weird to see that through the cover, but whatever. That's where I put it. And then again, just line it up, snap it on, and you are set to go. And then here's the one for Hero's Call. Same kind of setup here. You got your art with the logo on the front, art with no logo, art with logo, art with none, and nothing on the bottom. I'm not going to turn it upside down so you can see that, but just trust me, just black on the bottom. And then your acrylic top. I will note here that because of the way they do the background of like the mountain or whatever this is supposed to be back here, or the snow, it does make it look like this one still has the plastic stuff on the back, but it does not. So just bear that in mind. Anyway. So inside, similar to the other one, we've got our rule book in here. And then again, it has one of these. These are basically just in there if they want to raise the level of what is on one side compared to the other and make it easier to keep things from moving around. You do not want to store these vertically either way, but that's just a way in here to kind of make sure that stuff doesn't move around just as you are lifting it up and moving it from place to place in a small protective measure. And then kind of similar in its setup, we have this tray here. That is for all of your regular size cards, so like your hero cards and whatnot here. Again, plenty of space for them to be sleeved. And then each of your players will need a hero and war tower. So they've got these. Now, this time they are done by the different regions and kind of the way that they look, but nothing color-coded for this one. But you do have one for each color of player faction there. You got this tray with the divider with your exploration tokens, your hero level tokens, and your silver tokens in there together. And then underneath, your tray for your large cards. Again, I just have a little punch out thing here. I would note that in the instructions it does say that the compass card goes in this one, but that's because probably they were looking at a compass card from Ultra Tiny Epic Kingdoms, not the one for Tiny Epic Kingdoms for some reason. And this is where your territories and your factions, along with that AI card for solo, will go. And underneath, artwork there this time with the Gamelin logo. Most of them have the logo. For whatever reason, Kingdoms does not. And again, you just kind of pop them back in here as needed. Whoops. Put your cover on. Put your manual back in here, however you want to do it. I guess I could turn it like this. Maybe it'll look a little cooler while it's in there as a background. And then snap on your lid. Make it nice and flush here, and you are good to go. Now, one thing I would note, if you do get these when it comes to, say, putting them on a shelf, if you are going to put them in a Kallax, that's great. They're designed to basically be so they can sit outward facing, like so, in a Kallax with a little bit of space in between them. However, bear in mind that let's say they're close together like this and you're grabbing one and you've got like a stack of these things. when you pick them up, be careful because this edge does come out a little bit to clip on. And there are these little prongs because, again, all this stuff is just snapped together wood. There's no glue involved, though they do stay together well. But these parts here that stick out from when you are snapping this on, see, I just had to pop that back in there because it did get bumped a little bit. They mostly stay pretty well tight. But if you're lifting one up, this part could hit that edge of the one next to it and potentially cause any damage or knock them out of shape. And you want, when you're stacking them, to have the wooden edges here, right, to basically rest on the wooden edges of the one below it to help distribute that weight without putting a bunch of weight on the acrylic top. So they are stackable. I have them stacked that way myself. You just want to be a little bit careful when you are stacking them. So I like these. I think they were worth the money, but that's because I backed it on the Kickstarter. I got all 16 boxes, and that meant that I got a significant discount on them compared to what they would eventually be, which wound up, I think, once you convert over into dollars, was about 20 bucks a box. So still steep, but as much as I love the Tiny Epic line, I felt it was worth it for that blinging out, and they are so much better for organization, and I really do feel like this sort of spurs me on to potentially do some sleeving of the various Tiny Epic games that I have. But that said, if we want to see an example of sleeved ones, that'll be our next video. We're going to take a look here real quick in the next video at the storage box for Tiny Epic Dungeons to finish out looking at that product line, and there you'll see an example of cards that are sleeved that also fit very well. Hope you enjoyed this, and hope that helps you perhaps make decisions if you are eyeing these boxes. Just bear in mind, probably the retail price is going to be a little bit more steep. Your mileage will certainly vary depending on whether you sleeve, how much you care about organization, and whether you just want to cram everything into the original boxes rather than these, because the original boxes are, again, a bit smaller. If I can just use the Tiny Epic Defenders box here as an example of size, that is your size comparison. They are significantly, if I move that to the edge, significantly deeper, significantly longer, only a little bit taller, but the height of these boxes will vary significantly depending on whether it's like this, where it's one Tiny Epic box put into a new box, versus something like Dungeons, where it's the base game, plus an expansion, plus some extra goodies, all in one box that makes it significantly taller. We will look at a height comparison in that video. So, thank you for watching, and hopefully you will check out that next video for a little bit more on this particular line of licensed boxes.